My sister and her boyfriend have been living together in an apartment for nearly a year now, and it's a very nice apartment. It's modern and white, very white actually, a little too white, especially since it has very tall walls. It feels even whiter than it might do with shorter walls, and that's something that my sister doesn't really like with their apartment. She wanted to paint walls and add colour to it. They did add quite a few green, dark green, kind of forest green elements to the apartment, but she would like to do a little bit more to the place by painting walls, but her boyfriend is not too keen on painting walls since they're renting the place and they don't know how long they're going to stay in the apartment. It's all about compromise when it comes to a couple, so I completely understand where each of them are coming from, but it just means that the walls are staying white and that's it. So I thought of doing something to decorate the apartment a little more, and it's something that quite a lot of people have done and that I've seen people do. Instead of putting wallpaper up or painting walls, it's basically framing wallpaper, buying a huge frame and putting a piece of wallpaper in it to kind of give that resemblance of having an accent piece that isn't white. Yeah. This summer I worked in a shop and there were times where I find myself very bored, and so to keep myself occupied I went around the different aisles to see what we sold and see if anything was interesting to me, and I came across this piece of wallpaper kind of. It's 50 by 70 centimeters, so it's quite big I guess, and it's definitely in the color schemes that they have at the apartment. Different shades of green, there's also a bit of silver to it, and I just think it looks really nice, and they also really like marbre effect. So yeah, I think it's perfect, but obviously I can't just give them that. It needs to go in a frame, and so when I bought this, I think it was in August, I was on the lookout for a frame, a 50 by 70 centimeters frame, which is quite a big frame, very precise, and they can be quite expensive. They sold some at the shop where I was working and they were very expensive. Yeah, so I didn't want to do that, so I decided I would go to the charity shop I have near the place that I live, and so I went there looking for a frame. They don't really do frames that often, but I was hopeful and I found one. On my first trip there, I found one, which is insanely lucky. It was the only one there with those kind of dimensions, and there wasn't anything bigger or anything tiny bit smaller that I could work with, so yeah, I was extremely lucky. But the charity shop that I go to, a lot of things are kept outside, and if you didn't know, when you go outside sometimes it rains, and so yeah, it's the reason why a lot of the things that you get there are very cheap. I mean, the frame that I got, since it was outside, literally only cost me like 20 centimes, which compared to like 40 euros, come on. But more of the story, it needs help. It's very damaged, very soaked, and it's also gold, and gold is not really their thing. It's mine, but it's not their thing, so I need to paint the frame. I was thinking of black, if not silver. I think black will work better since it's quite a thin frame, and black is also quite a thing that they have. But yeah, the frame needs work. The plank of wood, I don't know what material it is, at the back was completely soaked, and so it was all bendy and it wasn't, you couldn't use it and couldn't give it like this. So I thought of laying very heavy things on it completely flat to see if it would flatten properly and if as it dried it would be salvageable. It is not salvageable, so I'm gonna have to replace that piece. But yeah, this video is my journey of upcycling, redoing this frame so that it's what I need it to be. Yeah. The first thing I started working on was finding something to replace the back piece, which needed to go ASAP. I didn't really have anything to replace it with though. I did have a rectangle plank of wood which would have worked really well if it had been the right size, but it was just way too small. You'll see it appear later on in this video. So the only other thing I had was this cardboard box. Not ideal, I know, but I kind of didn't want to go shopping, so I worked with what I had, which, as stated previously, wasn't much. But yeah, let's go back to the cardboard box. Before cutting anything, I first had to make sure that the cardboard box was big enough to be used as a substitute, which is why you can see me lining it up to the frame. It barely was. Once I had the go-ahead, I unstuck the glued parts with a box cutter so that the cardboard could lay completely flat and so that I'd get a bigger surface to work with. Once that was done, I cut the cardboard box with scissors, using the frame as a reference. Unfortunately, with the way the cardboard box was folded on itself, for the piece to be big enough, I had to use two parts that detached when cut, so I reattached them with brown tape, because I obviously needed it in one piece. I also reinforced the edges that were a little weak with the same tape. I really wanted to secure it in place as much as I could. Plus, it does make it look a lot cleaner. Time to remove this monstrosity. Look how damaged it is from the water. You can really see a difference between the part that was spared and the whole other part that wasn't. It just looks so different. Anyway, let's remove it and say goodbye to it for good. It did get a little everywhere, unfortunately, but it's fine. It's now time to cut the cardboard to the right size, which I'm doing by first tracing the glass onto the surface. Okay, I think we're pretty much done with the back piece. Now time to give the glass a little clean. I mean, look at all of that dust and dirt. There might be a few specks of dust still left on the glass, but I did what I could. I'm now moving on to the actual frame, which can't stay as it is. The gold needs to go. I'm using both sandpaper and a sander, though I did end up using the sandpaper a lot more since it allowed me to be much more precise and careful and also gentle. This is what it looked like once sanded. It looks so pretty. I think the different shades of pink look so good with the gold, but that's still not what we're going for. I'm going for a silver frame, particularly because I forgot that I was leaning towards a black frame rather than a silver one when I filmed the intro, but it's fine. I'm wiping any excess off of the frame with a paper towel so that we can move on to the next step, which is the spraying part. I will say, right after sanding the frame, I felt like I could have skipped that part entirely. I feel like all it did was scratch the frame, leaving some marks after spraying it. Though I obviously don't know how it would have looked like if I hadn't sanded it, but I just wanted to put it out there. I did this outside because it stank quite a lot, and I just didn't want it to make the conservatory smell really bad, even though it still did, which was obviously not great. But anyway, as I mentioned before, there was a plank of wood that could have worked pretty well as a replacement for the back piece, with how sturdy it was, but it was just too small. Well, I decided to still use it like that. It would reinforce the cardboard, which was quite flimsy. Especially since by replacing the back piece with the cardboard that I used, there was no way of adding a little hook on the back to hang it on a wall or even use command strips with it. So I used strong glue to fix the two pieces together, following the instructions carefully. Since I am using strong glue, once the plank is onto the cardboard, it's on there for good and you cannot move it. So it's not perfectly centered, but it's not a big deal. Once that's done, it's time to piece it all together. Ignore the following clips for a split second that lasted way longer than it should have. I completely forgot that the glass part goes in first, not the thing you put in the frame. So I needlessly struggled for a bit there, but my brain came to eventually. Thank goodness. Though me forgetting to lay and keep the piece of paper flat so that it doesn't roll up definitely didn't make things any easier either, as you can see. That's just part of the challenge, I guess. All done! Here's a closer look at the paper that I bought since I didn't really show it at all in the introduction. Just kidding about me being done, by the way. In the end, I felt like I needed to add some proper tape to the back piece because for some reason the brown tape just did not want to stick, even though it's literally made for cardboard. But yeah, sometimes things just don't make sense. It just kept coming undone, so I decided to use this thick black tape, hopeful that this time it would work. This did mean that after spending quite a while struggling to place the paper in the frame, I had to take it all apart, which I was totally fine with. Yeah. But I do feel like it did work a lot better. And while I was at it, since it was working quite well, I also used the black tape to secure the plank I added to the cardboard, just in case. It also gave it a cleaner look, so that's always good. Now we are done. This is the finished result. It's not perfect, obviously. I did what I could with what I had. I'm still not sure if the silver frame was the right choice or not, but it's the one I made. I definitely can't argue that it doesn't look much better than it did before, because it does. Now, whether or not the back piece is that practical, that is yet to be decided, though it can very well be replaced later on. Same for the frame. It can easily be painted over if that's something that my sister and her boyfriend want to do. There's no hook at the back yet, so it can't be hung on a wall. But since this was filmed 2 months ago, I can let you know that they've placed it on the floor, so it doesn't bother them that there isn't. That doesn't sound great said like that, but it honestly doesn't look bad. It's kind of like when people place frames on shelves instead of hanging them on the wall. I think it's kind of cool. Anyway, here are close-ups of the back. It does look like a newbie made this, but that's exactly what happened, so you cannot fault it for that. One of the things that keeps the frame shut came off or just didn't come with the frame when I bought it, which is why the cardboard or the back piece sticks out a bit at the top right corner. The frame is also a little loose since it's obviously still not brand new, but I don't think there was much that I could have done with that. But anyway, time to wrap this baby up. I did this a week before Christmas, so it needed to be wrapped before being put underneath the Christmas tree. The frame was the perfect size for the wrapping paper, which was unbelievably satisfying, and it made my job a lot easier. Once that was done, I added a little tag that I made using an old Christmas cracker. I didn't give myself a lot of time to do this, but we did it! We did it, guys! It is done. Let me know what you think, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you soon. Bye!